Hello, everybody. We are live now.
Hello.
Hey, good evening. Welcome to Psychological Horizons. A pleasant evening to our esteemed panelists, moderators, and our viewers online. Really grateful to be back with yet another and a very informative session on career prospects. To be trained on how you can go ahead with your psychology. Elishika Ponkumadla, will be your event coordinator for today's session on Meet the Research Executives to learn about research and how to go about with the whole research process. I graduated from Sampurna.montfort College with a master's degree in counseling psychology. I am currently working as an in-house psychologist at Yodos, an online counseling platform for mental health and emotional wellness. The aim of Psychological Horizons, curated by Montfort alumni team, is to help students and emerging professionals understand and stay informed about the multitude of opportunities out there in the field of psychology and mental health. Along with this, we would like to develop a realistic picture of things to expect, challenges, and life experiences which will aid in hopefully making an informed decision. Let me introduce to you Ms. Shagun Narula, our moderator. Shagun, she holds a master's degree in psychology. She is keen in the field of education and uses her creative skills and knowledge based from psychology as a cross to ensure learning outcomes are achieved in a fun manner. She's currently working in a school and also trains students on life skills as part of CBSE curriculum. Meet our panelists for today. Let me introduce you to Jyotisha Matthew, who's a research associate at Bundeshwar University, Munich. So combining her multiple interests and interdisciplinary training, Jyotisha is currently working at the intersection of industry and academia after completing her MSc degree in psychology with a specialization in learning sciences from LMU Munich. She is part of the biological psychology lab at the university, working on neurobiological and other behavioral data collected by the EEG, VR, and other state-of-the-art methods, and is currently and is also conducting UX research. She is also working as a learning manager at TEC Leadership Institute Munich, helping corporates identify and implement the best learning processes and strategies within their organizations. Next up, we have Nurain Fatima. She's a psychologist and research specialist.
Is she stuck for me or no? Ami as well.
Oh, I think Ellie is facing some sort of a internet issue. Shagun, do you want to take up? Yeah.
Yeah. So sorry about the technical difficulty. So as Elishika was just talking about Nurain, so she is a counseling psychologist and research specialist working at an organization in Bangalore. She was honored with a gold medal for her academic work by the Governor of Karnataka. Her main focus of work is research on corporate wellness interventions and delivering and evaluating the same. She believes the success of the organization is deeply connected to the well-being of their employees. Nurain has a keen interest in academic research and wishes to simplify research for the students. This founded Mind Fact Psychology Research Consultancy that aims to help students navigate through their research journeys. She has supervised over 100 students and will not stop anytime soon. We wish you luck, Nurain. We then have amongst us Varsha. She asks questions for a living and good ones. I can vouch for that. She plays a role when business meets psychology and consumer psychology research is born. She is detail oriented, analytical professional with a Masters of Science in Psychology from Montfort College. Through her educational background and experience, she has become well versed in conducting psychological research, coming up with questionnaires, and analyzing and coding data in a scientific manner. We are really delighted to have all of you here, and as has already been said, you all are pride of Montfort, and we look forward to having a delightful evening with all of you. And I'm sure the listeners will benefit from the insights that you have to offer us today. Having said that, I will be moderating the session for you all today, and for yes, Ellie.
I am sorry, seems like my internet connection is lost.
No worries, Ali. Shagoti filled in. Do you mind please introducing yourself as well, and then we can continue.
Alright, so yes, I'm sorry, I just lost the connection, not sure how far I went with it. But yes, to give a little introduction about myself, this is Elishiva, and I'm an in-house psychologist at Yodos, also an alumni of Sampurna.montfort College. Yeah.
Lovely to have you today, Elishiva. Yeah, so I think for a change today, we are going to be shooting questions at you, unlike how you do to people. So for today, we are going to be posing questions at you. So I think what we commonly hear at Montfort, especially in the fourth semester, is like those panic voices, really like dreading research. The whole idea of sitting with your research supervisor, understanding where to go, how to go. It actually does start in third semester, but it starts showing up in semester 4, right? And then during the completion, you learn a lot. It's a phase where you really don't understand what is happening. So how was the journey like for you? Were you always interested in research? Did you pick it up on the way? And how has your journey been like from a student in Montfort till to where you are today at a phenomenal place that you're working at? So how did you all reach there? Maybe we can go in any order that we like. Perhaps for this one we can start with Nurain and then Varsha. Yeah.
So for me, actually, I did my bachelor's in Middlesex University, which is a UK-based college, and over there we had a lot of guidance in terms of research. Like, research is not stigmatized over there. It's more like you have to do it and you have to be good at it. So because of that, there was already a base training which really helped me in Montfort. So towards the fourth semester, the panic, everybody was panicking, and I won't say I wasn't panicking because I really was passionate about it. But I started helping my friends, and it so happened that I think so many destinations had like acknowledgements of we thank Miss Nur and Fatima for her help, and like my friends, and I'm just like, okay, this is actually so cool. Like, so many people needed my help at that point because it's so stigmatized in India, especially. Like, research is something like people run away from it, and statistics though, it's another talk by itself. So that is something that really like stuck with me even after I finished college, and which is why I founded my own private company, and that's called Mind Fact Psychology Research Consultancy. So what we basically do is we help students, especially at this point in that fourth semester where they're panicking, we kind of help them, navigate through the research journey. Like, helping them in terms of scheduling, how to manage the time, and even if it's statistics, teaching them statistics like A, B, C, D, like holding their hand basically, like an additional supervisor, but not the official supervisor. But we don't write it for them because that would be unethical. So that was my thing, to break that stigma. And I think by God's grace, we've supervised so many children that way, and they still reach out even till this very day. And I think right now Montfort is in a similar place where there are lots of panicky students right now because it's, I think, the 4th semester. So you have a lot of requests coming in. So yeah, that was like the main journey in terms of why I started what I started. To help students, because I have seen that panic and it's not cool. Like, I know people who've gone for therapy for the first time because of how stressful their research would be on their shoulders. So yeah.
Varsha, how was the journey like for you?
Alright. So mine was quite different because I think from the very beginning of like when I started to understand things, I was always a curious person. So I wanted to just explore what is happening around. And for me, how it started was, of course, my first exposure to research was definitely Montfort, and I managed to find Vishal as my guide. And when I got into Montfort, of course, the general psychology that we have in MSc Psychology batch, it offers us different career opportunities with like, various different counseling or clinical psychology or different industrial, etc. But there was one thing that was left very less explored, and there was also one thing which was left, which was not gone back by students. Everybody were like, oh, what's up? Exactly how Noreen was saying. They had some sort of a panic there. So I wanted to make sure that I feel safe and good in that place in terms of research, and I wanted to always explore why is this a little difficult. So I think in my second semester or end of first semester, starting of second semester, I decided that okay, I'll take up research. I started quite early than most of the other students, only because I kind of was decided that if I want to do something in psychology, it is definitely going to be research. So once I decided that, for me, I didn't bother about doing any sort of internships or any sort of working or anything else. I was just focusing on doing my honors program at Montfort with having research as one of the credits. So at that point is when I realized that there is so much to this particular part of unexplored side of psychology. So I think it is necessary for researchers to stand up now and make decisions or understand how data comes, how facts are generalized, how things are found, how what you contribute back to the field. It's okay for us to learn something that the field has already given us, but research is one place where you can give something back to the field. So that was something exciting me, and hence I took up that journey. So after Montfort, I did work with a marketing research consultancy, and then 1 year post that, I was like, let me take a great year gap. In that year gaps, of course, I did also do some sort of a freelance work where I was associated with different professors. Again, continued to work around with research, and then now back to again marketing research. And so it's a place of where consumer psychology and psychology works together. So yeah, that's been my journey. Thank you.
Right, so I'll go next. Yeah, sure. Perfect. So I have, my journey has bits of Varsha's and Nurain's in there, especially with the whole therapy bit when it comes to stats. So the person that got me hooked onto research was actually Lopa. So there's this friend of mine, Anisha. She's fabulous. So if you guys get a chance to bring her on, you should. So Anisha and I were just sitting and talking one day on the lawn. A lot of her ideas for research came up in that very, tiny ass lawn over there. So we were talking and we figured, we want to do this, but we're only in our second semester. We don't, thesis is far away, life is good. Why don't we add some more stress into our lives? And we came up with this topic for a qualitative study, essentially, to do research in the LGBT community. And back then, the repeal of Section 377 hadn't happened yet. So we took this idea, went to Lopa, and Lopa, being the fabulous supportive person she is, she was like, yes, let's do it. And that's how I got into research per se. And through that journey, there were a lot of side research projects that we took up because we really like, inflicting harm upon ourselves, and the stress of Montfort and the course was not enough. But Lopa, Vishal, Maxim, they've all been extremely supportive because we just had ideas and we would just run to them. I think that's when they put up the sign outside the staff room saying students can only come in for consultation after 4 p.m. So I would say our batch was responsible for that. But this was something that I saw very often in a lot of my classmates as well. So there was no fear for research per se. Everyone loved talking about ideas. Everyone loved discussing, what happens if we do this, what happens if we do that. And the trouble the first challenge that we came across was stats. And a lot of times, I think, like Noreen said, when you do your bachelor's in Middlesex University, it's not like a big black box. You're taught to kind of embrace it, but that's not the case maybe in India in general. And maybe for students who take up psychology, you associate this fear of math with stats, but it's not the same and nothing to be scared about. But of course, at the time it seems very, very overwhelming. And I think that's getting over that fear was the first step. Getting over the fear of SPSS, R, or Python or whatever. That's the first step. And just realizing that it's not so bad. So that really helped us. And after Montfort, I went on actually to work in a school, so practice. Essentially, I was completely cut off from research, and that's when I realized, I miss this. I miss research as a part of my life. Again, I don't know why, but like I said, there's probably a pattern out there for you psychologists to figure out why. There's a cycle of inflicting harm. But and then I came here to do a very academic master's program in Germany, and I think it's here where I understood the basics of the fundamentals of research. So of course, yes, we were doing research, but the very essential building blocks, understanding the basics of statistics, and they really take their time to make you understand, or to help you rather understand these fundamental questions. And I think that's where that kind of pushed me further, because there's a lot of self-learning involved. And I think this is also something that would really help students in India, because we wait, perhaps to get a PowerPoint presentation from our teachers or to get reference textbooks, but it can only get you that far. What you really need is a lot of self-learning. There's such cool stuff out there on YouTube. There's so many exciting books, and they can break, like some authors really break it down into basics, and that's what will help us as a community of psychologists to get over this fear and break this stigma, this made-up monster that we have in terms of stats. So essentially, after I graduated, I figured, oh man, I don't want to do my PhD, that seems like a nightmare. But I contacted some professors and I started working in research labs over here. And as I got into that, I also realized there was this whole research sector outside of academia that was taking place. So corporate research, like Varsha rightly said, and how you can also use research not just not just for like data collection and analysis, but also to tailor learning programs and so many other different uses, and that's how I got into the different roles I am today. Yeah.
Right. Again, like I think what stands out is that how simply you just put it there, right? Like it's all in your head. The first block that you have is just in your head. Like the moment you decide to go against it or fight against it, the problem is solved. You now know how to do research, right? And I especially like what Jyotisa said, that there's a common misconception there that math and stats are like absolutely correlated, while perhaps like there is some overlap, but it doesn't have to be like you need to be really good at maths to be able to figure this out. And I think like Jyotisa also pointed out that sometimes I think what I also commonly hear at the place that I work from students is that there's also kind of a fear of computer applications. Although like this generation is supposed to be more comfortable, they're actually not comfortable giving out commands to the computer. They are like so scared to learn that. So of course, like you, I think what I've gathered is that it's easy to do it if you wish to do it, and at least like everybody can try it out. It's not like you're supposed to be born with some extraordinary abilities out there. You can always take on skills. Having established that, what do you think are some of so to say either prerequisites or some of the skill set that you think people should have when they're entering the field or are in the field, trying to sustain themselves? Because as I understand, it's something that will require you to be attentive, that will require you to pay attention to detail. So what are those skills that you would recommend for people to have? Maybe this time we can have like maybe Varsha first. Varsha, what do you?
Yeah, sure. I think you don't really need a prerequisite skill to start research. You have to start with curiosity. Uh, and as you develop yourself as a researcher, that's when you take up skills that you need to establish yourself in the field. Like, for example, academic research has scientific writing, which is one of the most important skills that you would have to, but that comes with practice and development and courses and etc. But to just start, like, I'm talking about research in college level. So I know we were just our conversation started with the fear of maths or correlation with statistics, etc. But to break that, if I would vouch for starting with the qualitative research because you understand the exploration of the research itself, and then put yourself into a mainstream quantitative research. So in terms of what is the prerequisite skills, I first start with curiosity, second start with ethical practice. Ethical practice, of course, is the first and foremost thing. It even starts with the way you ask your questions. Have you made your questions run through different validation processes? Has that been right to ask in certain places? If it is sensitive in nature, have you debriefed it? So all those are sort of uh, basics is what you have to get yourself accommodated yourself and feel comfortable with yourself in those places. Once you get yourself, like, you are comfortable to do those sort of a research, and then you have to move towards brushing yourselves with some sort of a technical skills, whether it is learning SPSS for quantitative research, or even in terms of coding, in terms of qualitative research, thematic analysis, or any other grounded theory analysis that you would want to do in your qualitative research. And the last part of the research, which I also feel is a skill, is defending your research. And that comes with a place where you're not supposed to throw your biases. So biases is also plays a role. Like, you could be 100% say this is my research, I'm going to fight for it. Yeah, continue to. But not into a place where you throw any sort of bias. And even biases comes in every stages, right? Even when you're questioning your interviewee. Um, uh, there might be some sort of bias that comes back. So you'll have to learn the art of pulling yourself back to the research question. What are you exploring? What are you finding? So, firstly, stay grounded, be an active listener. Secondly, of course, have the passion for research. It starts with curiosity, starts with understanding, exploring the topic. We call this in qualitative as phenomenological exploration. These are the words that we use, right? So all of that starts with curiosity, and then we can worry about the technical skills that you'll have to get to establish your research later. So start with being curious. Yeah, that's what we.
Right. What are your thoughts, Nure?
I think I have a very similar viewpoint, especially with the fact that you need a curious lens with research. And often a lot of kids, or students, when they start research, they read everything. They think that they cannot miss anything out. So that's another skill that you can develop. Academic writing, academic reading, scientific writing or scientific reading. I mean, that is very different from just reading a novel. You need to develop that skill. I feel that really helps and it saves a lot of time. And another skill that I would recommend is time management. It is so important. That's something I see over and over again, that people don't know how to manage their time, and that affects the overall quality of their research papers. And also structuring, basically time management and organizing skills is another thing that I would say. So yeah, these are the top few skills, but in addition to this, definitely you need to equip yourself in terms of the technicalities, like trying to go for a course for SPSS and all of those kind of things. And I think in a lot of colleges, they do teach SPSS, but there's a great amount of material available online where they break it down so beautifully on different YouTube videos. In fact, that's how I started learning about research. So having that spark to just do it by yourself, it automatically really enhances your learning, because it's not always spoon feeding that's going to get you anywhere. And I think all of us agree on that. We are here today because we have done something by ourselves, in addition to all the support that was available for us. So for me, these were the skills that I always vouch for, and I feel if you have these and develop these for starters, then the rest of it, always you can have support around you to build on. So you don't have to be a pro at SPSS to begin SPSS. That's how I look at it. I'm even if you have the will, then they can always come to any of us and we will happily help them. Because I think psychology is where it is today only because of research. If not for research, we wouldn't have what we have today. So I think it's time for us to give it back.
Right.
Yeah, I think just to take off from what Nureen said, none of us are experts, none of us are ever going to be experts. just think of it as, a means to an end. Like, how we use a calculator on our phone, that's it. This is just a fancy calculator for us to do little more advanced calculations. There's no need to be scared of it at all. And like also, there's so many resources. I think it's the openness. You need to be willing to learn, you need to be willing to put some time into looking things up or reading things up and just trial and error. It's okay, you fail. Just cry for a bit and then go on, try again, it's okay. I think that's very important. And the fact that Nurain said academic reading and academic writing, when you move on from a non-PhD or non-academic sector to a more corporate sector, it becomes all the more important to keep yourself grounded in actual research and not to go with, there's a lot of pop psychology out there. So it's very important to know what do you actually need and what can you actually trust, So you need to be able to develop that skill to identify what resources are legit. So, and not be easily driven by these pop psychology links out there or whatever it is. And I think the other thing is maybe just developing a growth mindset, because it's okay, everyone gets things wrong, none of us are perfect, we are going to fail, it is a given. If you know anything in life, it's that we are going to fail at some point, for sure. There's no point in crying about it, it is what it is. So I think being okay to just take risks and to do a lot of self-learning, that would be my advice to the students out there, that's something you need to start, especially in psychology, because more so in India, because we feel like it's this bubble, there's only so much we can do, there's only the XYZ paths we can take, but there's so much more. There's UX researchers, people linking psychology with games, psychology with card. It's such an exciting field, and it's now going from just engineers to psychologists. They want to see human-computer interaction. It's such a diverse, interdisciplinary field at the moment that you just need to be willing to open some, do a Google search and just read. That's it. It's as simple as that. And I'm telling you this because it's something I wish someone told me when I was young, like when I was studying, so which is why I think it's very important for students to hear this.
And just to add to that, like I think during my third and fourth semester, there were a lot of times like, oh, I have to only be a counseling psychologist because I've done my MSc in counseling psychology. That was all I could see because that is all I was fed in, But when you go out there, like the world is quite diverse, especially in terms of, psychology, even in India, I actually work for this company, like it's a corporate company over here in Bangalore, and over there we basically do research, but in terms of designing interventions. So, that's a different kind of research over there. So, there's like academic and non-academic. And both of them can offer you a lot of, career paths. It's not just one thing that they need to fixate on. That, if I do this, I'll become only a professor. If I do this, I'll only become a counseling psychologist. So, what I'm trying to say is that the job market is actually quite diverse. All you need to do is open your eyes up and like get off that entire rule that you have kept for yourself. Because that's something that we've been fed in from very long. That, if you do this degree, you get this job. But it's not that, the field is growing, and I think we are very lucky to be a part of this field. A lot of jobs are opening out there, especially for research oriented. So yeah.
And a lot of people want to understand, like they want the help of psychologists to understand human behaviors in XYZ context. So there's so much to do that goes beyond like what we are, like you said, very rightly said, that we're told that we can only become counselors or therapists or do a PhD or become a professor. And you're like, what? Is that all? And if you don't want to do any of that, it's completely fine because the field is evolving so rapidly. And you just, even if it's something like for example, UX research, I didn't hear of this 5 years ago, 6 years ago. And I never thought I would be working on an app. Like, I thought of something engineers do or a designer does, Like, why would someone who studies psychology do anything like this? But you realize that there's so much knowledge that we have, that we gain during our bachelor's and our master's studies that can be used in so many different places. I think it's very important to, like you very rightly said, keep an open mind as to, just keep your eyes open. You never know where it's going to lead you. Yeah.
Right. So also just adding on to what both Nurain and Jyoti sir were mentioning about how diverse the field is getting. I think previously we were saying that the mainstream psychology involves only the clinical psychology and counseling psychology, and then during my batches one of the most open field was positive psychology. And I think from now we'll have to start looking at another part of psychology which is mostly to do with user experience research, which Jyoti sir was quoting, and other researches which is regarded with AI and everything, because every other part of human interaction requires a psychologist to think for how best to use it. So when you have when you have the ability to not just understand and listen to a problem, but also can think and understand how to make the experience more better, that's where a researcher role plays up. And just to add up to what the conversation in university level happens is definitely like, I mean, we should be open to break and fail, because at some point you will be like you're going you will not find an end for your research, and that's okay. You can still fight for your research and say I went searching for it and I didn't find any sort of thing, but this is still my research. And you can, the way you can defend it is saying that I went fighting for it, but I didn't find it, but this is what I found it. You can just say that. So you should, it is just the way how you put, it's just a perspective that you see. So I think that there's a lot of unlearning and a relearning that has to happen if you want to grow in a career such as research. And yeah, that's from me.
Yeah, I think Varsha left us all at a really something that we could think of. Actually, when I also, now that I look at research, actually no finding is also a finding. And she just left us with that thought, because you're not actually failing. Even you failing means something, right? So really, really nice. And from what I've gathered is also that you have a knowledge pool, and how you use it is how you're gaining skills, and also how you're earning or like making yourself noticeable in any field that you choose to go to. It only depends on what you've had, because from what I also understand, all of us sitting even now at a panel like this, and with the different in very, very different parts of the world, with a lot of sets of customs, traditions, every day also I think what we have studied has impacted the way we are all turning out, right? So stand very true of what you guys just said, that out there are multiple opportunities for you. How you take up is how you will define what you have studied and how you're going to make use of it. Which brings us perfectly to the next question that I was going to ask. What are the sub areas that we find typically in these in this field? What are the common terms that we would hear, or like if I'm a person who would want to look this up, or like want to go in this field, especially after I have chosen like one mainstream thing and now I'm thinking maybe this is the thing for me, what should I typically look for? What are those keywords that you would want to tell me? Some of the areas that are out there. One of it that we heard was UX research. What are the other things that typically a person can look into?
I can go? Alright. So I think I can speak from a corporate perspective. In corporates, of course, we have incredible amount of research that goes into in any sort of major business decisions that has to be made. So to just give you a perspective, imagine a brand and they want to establish a brand in like they're a well-established brand in some other part of the world and they want to come to one particular country. If they are getting into that particular country, they have to understand the audience of that particular country. So you need a particular researcher to understand what is this. So that starts with a proper survey. If a survey has to go out to those audience, nationally representative audience, or online representative audience, you need to design a question. So when you're designing question based on a research problem or a research question that any sort of a company comes up with, you are directly dealing with primary audience. So that's called primary research in corporate. So if you start searching for primary research roles, you will be mostly working with a lot of questionnaire designing, analysis perspectives, etc. And a little higher than that is when you do advanced analytics. That's when you work around with all the data that you have collected, with all the surveys that you ran. You would want to make analysis out of it. They work with SPSS or whatever other different perspectives of it. And then the step after that is also when people come up with insights, a team which works around all the research that has come up with, who gets all the analysis together, who makes this analysis so easily understandable to help some companies make major business related decisions. So either it could start with just visualizing all these data in some sort of a platform to explain that to the crowd, or key opinion leaders to make up proper decisions out of your research. before all of this starts, also there is some part of a research which is also called the secondary research. That's where you see a lot of teams in corporate. They call themselves as, I think, competitive intelligence or CI teams or something. They work around with gathering the information. So in university level, we call it as literature review, right? So they do a lot of reading to understand the market, and then they give you, see, this is the market, this is the research question. Go ahead and design your survey. So that's how secondary research is, where you read about on the markets. So this is mostly blindly in terms of corporate research, how different teams do it, and of course there is a team in terms of field team, where they will be like, I'll probably design a question and I'll say for this particular team, go ahead and target these kind of audience, and I'll have an inclusion criteria saying, I want this particular age group and this particular profession, and you would want to ask them these particular questions. So they are the field team. So if I have to explain this to somebody in the university, like if I have to go back and explain this to myself when I was in college, I would say, think about the 5 chapters that you write in your dissertation. Each chapter has a role to play. Even the introduction is like a pitch for the research, saying that, you have this as a problem. Do you want us to research for that for you? So that also plays a part with sales, etc. So each chapters that you have written in your dissertation has a unique job role out there, and you will have to figure out what that is, because research doesn't, like, copying a research is unethical, same way copying something else is completely unethical. So hence I think all Jyotisa, myself and Noreen are saying that it's necessary for you to go out and find what is happening there. So, and because of most of our audience are placed in India, I also would want to say, even government organization in India is open for research. All that you have to do is get your junior research, I think it's called the fellowships done, and you can also write to IITs and see if they are doing any sort of you can write to professors in all these institutions if they're doing any research, and if you want to shadow them or work along with them as research executives. And a lot of think tanks in India are as well doing some incredible job. I understand that there is a stereotype with people to break and start research, but that doesn't mean that India is not doing any sort of research. India is also doing incredible research which is not known to the people, but I think that's where you have to start. You have to find, how can I work, or how can I get a internship in some sort of a Ministry of Foreign Affairs or something. Like, is there a possibility for me to work around with them? Is there a possibility for me to work around with policymakers? So it's all the searches that you do, and of course it's not just very psychological approach. You'll have to open up your field where you'll get to meet people from sociology background, anthropology background, and all of those background, and you'll have to learn the idea of blending to it. So that's with the past research. Yeah. I'll leave the floor for others.
So I think, like Varsha said, IITs, there's also IISc, I think, in Bangalore.
Yeah.
So a friend of mine, like a classmate of mine from Montfort, she also went on to work in IISc, and we were working on a project that was funded by the US, and she got to present her results in the US, and she won Best Presenter Award, and it was very exciting for the whole lab as well. And even in the US, like, her project when they worked on IISc was a very well-known, a very well-funded, renowned project. So IISc for sure, they're just taking off Varsha's lead. And NIMHANS has a lot. There's a lot happening at NIMHANS. If you want to get into policy, I think the UN, especially in the the northern region, there's a lot of research associates, like a junior, like to start off.
We have these research associate jobs available, like volunteering, but it's good amount of experience, like, before you jump into
It's a great way to build experience as well, yeah, for sure. So that's what, just to add to the government sector that Varsha was saying.
So for me, like, what I usually tell children is, like, there are 2 things, right? So one is you have academic research, which is like scientific, and then you have non-academic research. So I've done both of them, and we'll start with the academic one. So academic, usually, I'm not aware of all the options, but from what I have seen, it's usually in universities, or, even there are certain, corporates and all that do, take on certain academic research projects. And there's something called non-labs in Mumbai, which I have come across, who, they are like an independent research organization. So they recruit research interns. So all of this are options available for students who are graduating even now. So you don't need to be like, really pro at research to even get in over here. So they give you like these opportunities. They put you onto projects for 3 months so that you learn like the basics. As Varsha said, each part of your dissertation has a role to play. So they teach you how to, like get more familiar with those different sections of the research. And that is in terms of academic. And also I'm actually volunteering with Montfort itself as a research volunteer under Dr. Vishal and Maxim for a research project. So that is another option that students do have if they want to like get in and get more experience. It's more than money, it's about really gathering that knowledge, which will fetch you money eventually, but this is more on building your skills, before you get into like the hardcore research world. So you have these opportunities available. So if you really go on Google, literally what I typed was research volunteering opportunities. And I would like, actually there's so many available in India. We have quite a vast market out there, it's just that people are not aware. So this is in terms of academics, what my experience is. And non-academically is, I am into corporate research. So I get into understanding what is the intervention, what is the need of the organization, what do the employees need right now, and based on that I design interventions, and I also get like different tools that can evaluate how effective these interventions are on the employees. So which overall affect the productivity and the organizational growth, which is what they want. So it's like my need as well as their need gets fulfilled, and it's giving everybody success at the end. So this is another sector that's also available. So you can like Google things like corporate wellness manager, or corporate wellness, well-being operation or well-being project manager. These are certain roles which maybe the name doesn't sound very psychology, but when you do read the JDs of it, you will be quite surprised. A lot of it is to do with research, and it's research related to psychology. So these are a few things, and not only in India, even if people want to go abroad, like for example in Dubai, the market is really blooming, especially for industrial and organizational psychology, which is heavy on research, because here everything is based on facts and numbers and science. So you cannot just just write anything and send it. It's going to come back, So you need to be very scientific. You need to be very detail oriented and ethical practice. So yeah, this is what I've seen. So if you actually do Google whatever I just said, you will find so many job opportunities. I can guarantee that. So to begin with, internships are a great way to start. You don't have to get like a high-paying job. That's what is your priority? Is it all about money? Like money is important, but when in research kind of fields, I feel experience holds a lot more value, and eventually that will fetch you what you want in terms of bucks. So yeah, this is my take on it.
Yeah, slightly just adding on to what Noreen was saying is that definitely, this is from a personal experience. I got my first job without having any internships. I was just a master's in psychology student with an honors in Montfort. But what got me the job was definitely my own personal research practice that I did. So for the audience there, it might get a little difficult with the job market to find a proper internship, but definitely if you're doing even your personal research and if you're able to talk about the learning experiences over there and then get a job, it definitely matters. And especially a very nice point that Noreen brought forward was the job description. You need to understand any sort of a job description to understand your role in the particular job, right? So every research job has definitely some sort of skill set they would want you to have. Maybe questionnaire designing is one of the skill sets. And it doesn't mean that you're randomly writing questions. You should understand how you would want to answer the question, and it starts with how would I feel if this question is being asked of me. So it starts with how you build those particular skills, which may or may not have a proper course out there. Definitely there are courses, but it also starts with your own work. Adding on to that, definitely there are job markets for internships as well. There is something also called as returnships. So in case people take up a proper gap year and say that, what, I want to go ahead and understand what's happening with my life and finding out careers, or if you're just sitting at home and exploring and understanding different career opportunities and doing your own research in any sort of a field, your own independent research, you have this opportunities called returnships. That is, you're returning back to corporate if you take a break. So that is some possibilities. There are a lot of courses that are available for giving these individuals opportunity to get back to any sort of the career that they took a break from, or even starting the career that they did after a long academic break after their universities. Yeah, just love that.
And I also think looking at keywords like market research or media research would help. Like, but you need to check the JD and see what aspect of it involves psychological research, for example.
Yeah, that was incredible, and I think a lot of input has come in terms of the learning that needs to happen. Like a lot of you said, you can always upskill yourself at any point, depending on what is required of you. Of course, it or like a prerequisite could be that you need to be a master's in psychology. However, on the way, there could be things that you need to pick up, right? At some point, Nurain said that, for example, reading is very important, and it's different from reading just another book, right? It will require you to really take mental notes at some point when the person is talking to you, and a lot of practice also goes into it. I think that will come in very handy to the listeners because this is the time when they can actually pick up this thing, and I am of it's never too late, so I think it will benefit us all. Yeah. Having said that, now that we spoke about multiple opportunities that are there in the field, would you say that it is good to be somebody like a jack of all trades in terms of going in all crazy and exploring each and every field out there, or would you recommend taking an approach where you are master of one or maybe none? Like, what do you think is useful out there? Any of you can go.
So, according to me, I feel it really depends on the person. I don't think I personally would tell anyone that you should do like this only or you should do it like this only. Become a master of this, don't be a jack of all this. I mean, I don't think it's right for us to make any kind of rules. Like, I think we can leave it on to the person. Everyone has a different life, everyone's in a different boat, but we are on the same journey. So yeah, I think I leave that up to the students. I think they have all the right to have that flexibility. So if they do suit with, learning a lot and jumping from one place to another, it's okay. Because you will eventually find your way and you'll really find what's your passion. But you're also, if you're the kind who wants to stick to just one thing and actually master that, then also fine, that works for you. So according to me, I don't think it's necessary to give a template to follow. It's more like do what you do you basically. Yeah, so that's my take on this.
Yeah, I think that's very well put, because everyone is so different, and that's absolutely right when Nurain said that if it doesn't fit you, it doesn't fit you, and it's completely okay. So at least for me, there was this whole, notion that you grow up, you study, you get a job, one job. Okay, maybe you have a few jobs, but then you find your perfect job and you stay in that job forever. It is such a wrong and such a powerful misconception. And especially considering the person I am, I cannot stay in one job, but I was still kind of forcing myself to be like, no, you fit in this box and you stay in that box. And then you just die unhappily eventually over time. But I think that's something we need to just take some time and reflect as individuals who we are. If it's something that we like, if we want to do one job and we are very happy with aspect of that job, stick to that. It's completely fine. If you're somebody who wants to mix and match, who wants to keep jumping, who wants to try putting your feet in different things, do that. It's absolutely okay, because this is also like from personal experience. It took me a while to come to terms of that, because I was like, no, I have to get one job, but I'm like, I don't like staying in one job, and it was very difficult for me to understand, or rather find a way to navigate between these two different thoughts that I was having. So it's completely up to the person. But that being said, I think it's extremely important to be adaptable and be completely okay with the fact that we are, as a human race, we are moving into a very interdisciplinary world. So it's not what it used to be. That initially you study X subject and you work in X subject. That's changing a lot. There's a lot. It's happening so fast. The technological advancements are so crazy. We can't keep up with it. That we have to also develop this mentality along with adaptability that we will be working in interdisciplinary. You will be expected to pick up some amount of coding. You will be expected to do some amount of research in any field. Even if you're, just doing accounts, for example. If you're an engineer, you will be expected to do some kind of human behavior related things in your field. Like for example, the engineers that make self-driving cars, they need to understand what the driver feels, right, or what the passengers feel to be able to implement everything. I mean, I have no clue about engineering, so I might be completely off tangent here. But I think that's something we all need to accept, that it's, you do one job, you do 10 jobs, you want to jump, it's fine. Just be ready to kind of adapt, to learn skills on the go, and to be okay with the fact that it's an interdisciplinary world.
Yeah. And like often a lot of kids are like, I've done my master's in counseling, now I have to do this. And then they look for like when they go for job hunting, the JD is the first thing that you actually approach. It's like, I can do this, the fourth point, oh, I can't do research. And then they just cut the entire job out. So, I mean, in this world, as very rightly said, it's like you need to adapt, you need to be okay with learning new things. You don't have to know everything to get a job. It's okay to learn and evolve within the job. So yeah, that's something I really strongly believe in. So that is something that I would want to say. Yeah.
Yeah, I think I agree with both what Jyotisa and Noreen said. It's necessary to be flexible with all the new learnings. I mean, when Jyotisa was giving an example of the car engineering things, imagine you're working on a research and you're like, okay, you finish the research and you want to raise a PO. And if you don't know how to raise a purchase order, you can't like say, it's not my work, it's somebody in the accounts department to do that. You can't do it, right? So it's sort of like you have to, the approach of the world itself is a multidisciplinary approach. You'll have to try to blend everything. And I think even if you go back in history of how psychology was born, it kind of took from every bits of fields, every which way, right? So like Shagun, you started with saying, is it okay to be jack of all trades or master of none? But if you complete that quote, it says that a jack of all trades is a master of none, but oftentimes better than a master of one, right? So it's okay to be a person with like having multiple aspects of research that you are, or just multiple aspects of life that you're good at, and you can still vouch saying that I'm good at many things, but of course not with a pride band, but yeah.
Right, I think that's a wonderful way to also inspire others to have a growth mindset, because that also gives us an opportunity to actually find out what you're good at. Of course, you could be interested in so many things, but the way you perform also depends on how good you are at it, right? So I think that's a wonderful approach to take and actually go out there and explore the wonderful market that is out there. So just a quick question, do you think in the field having a niche helps? Does that like get you to afford for anything, or like do you think having a niche really helps in the field?
Maybe having a specific background, like in a X specific field?
Research, yeah.
So in my experience, it hasn't. In fact, when I've interviewed with potential employers or current employers, it's always, so before I see it, it is they have brought it up that, oh, you've done X, Y, Z. It's all, it is psychology, but it's a different thing of psychology, not really related. But how does, like they all work, like there are skills from each aspect that work very well in this current role. So in my experience, I think it doesn't. Having a specific background doesn't really, it's not better or worse, but maybe it's different for some, maybe it's different for Varsha anyway. I don't know, what do you all think? Right.
Well, I mean, I agree with you, Jyotisa, because I see it also the same way. Maybe to find your comfort, you would need a specific background, but to grow there, you will need to upgrade yourself. So you can't settle for a niche. So I would say find your niche every time and don't be happy with it and find more. So in that way, you're never stopping.
Yeah, I think I have a similar opinion in terms of having a niche. It really depends on what you are really talking about. Especially in the corporate world, there are a lot of industrial psychologists who do target on certain type of clients, and they say, oh, this is my niche client type because that's what's getting them getting their businesses to run. So if you look at it from that point of view, yeah, it's okay to have a niche. It's okay to have it defined. But at the same time, you as an individual just having a very niche specialization, I don't think that should stop you. In fact, like you shouldn't only be looking for jobs related to that. It's similar to what we were talking about, like just have a very open mind. So just because something doesn't match what you're familiar with doesn't mean you are not going to touch it, it's okay to take those risks. And I think this at this time in your career is so important because you never know when it's going to really blossom. So yeah, that's what. Just have an open mind and be okay with uncertainty, which is kind of weird that I'm saying it because I hate it. But that's the only way we grow. I think life is uncertain, unfortunately. But yeah, you just tend to learn to grow, and yeah, just having a very open mind. So I don't think defining yourself with niche. I think you're just limiting yourself or putting yourself in a box. And I don't think anyone wants to live in a box anymore at this point. So yeah.
Great. Princey, just a quick check. Can we have like one last question and then I can give the mic to Elishaba? Is that okay?
Yeah, yes.
Okay. Quickly checking it with the panelists as well. Yeah, alright. So, like we have already understood, this is a field where you can actually explore yourselves a lot. There's so much out there. Looks like a promising field, looks like a future ready field. One, what do you think is the scope? Where is this going? Where do you personally see yourself? Maybe you can add like that could be a prompt for you to think on. And moving along those lines, what are the challenges that you think perhaps you have faced, somebody might face, you might face in the future? What are your tips on that? Yeah.
You can tell that this is being hosted by psychologists when there's so much of introspection happening. So scope, I think all of us have covered the scope because we're all working in the field in the field but in very different roles. And like I said, UX research is something that has boomed in the last 5-6 years, and not just to initially it was very limited to engineers and designers, and now it's coming to the area of human behavior and psychology. There's a lot of scope. Google, Meta, Facebook, Tesla, they're all into this, this new human-computer interaction. So those are the buzzwords. If students want to get excited, there's a lot of scope. I definitely think there's a lot of scope. In terms of challenges, I think as Noreen rightly put it, there's a lot of uncertainty as well. So that's one of your biggest. It depends on the kind of person you are. So if you're uncomfortable with it, face it. It's going to be uncomfortable. You have to be okay with the fact that it is going to be extremely uncomfortable. You have to constantly push yourself out of your comfort zone. Be it personally, be it professionally, that is going to happen, and it is very challenging. So just mentally be prepared for that to happen. Otherwise, potential challenges, I think what I see is individuals being a challenge to themselves in terms of not being very restrictive. So for example, not wanting to learn, not wanting to change, trying to fit in a box. These are all things we discussed. Those would be your biggest challenges. So these would be personal challenges, so to speak. Professionally, I think there's a lot of scope. You just have to just take the risk. It's okay. Just be open to learning, take the risk, keep going at it. It's very important to continue building your skills. And I think continue building your skills in a very universal way. So it can be transferred. So if, for example, if you want to transfer it from one country to another country, make sure that your skill set is transferable. It's not limited to a specific culture, to a specific language, to a specific region. So I think that's something that students can start thinking about, that you start building a very internationally valid and very relevant skill set together. So it's okay then it becomes easier to shift within the industry, it becomes easier to shift onto different roles and so on.
Yeah.
That's true.
Just continuing the line of thoughts from Jyotis, I think the field which is definitely going to be blooming, and we all know what is definitely artificial intelligence and machine learning and all of that. But when we're looking at that point in the world, the most important work is definitely for researchers and researchers from a psychological background, because you need to understand human interactions with the machine, and based on that, how you can make it comfortable for the human to use it. It can be just like, I think in the conversation we spoke a lot about user experience research, right? Even when you're using a product, how to make it more user-friendly, you would definitely need somebody from a thinking background in terms of psychology who has learned those aspects, learning those, who who potentially understand the schemas, who kind of work around with cognitive cognitions, etc., to get that field more better. So even any field that develops in future, you definitely have a role for a researcher to play. So I don't really find an end for that, because you can not stop finding things. That you, even if you say that, yeah, I'm done finding this, there is definitely another key that opens up and say there is a whole different perspective you didn't find, and it will be like, ding dong, where did you go? And that is how you start working ahead. So definitely machine learning, artificial intelligence, user experience research. And I have to also speak for market research, because when, as the whole globalism is taking forward, and when you're reaching ahead with like different markets, different people, I think different brands or different companies want to establish themselves in certain countries, or merge with some other country, some other brands that is existing in those countries. For all of that, you'll have to definitely have a marketing research perspective, and that's not necessarily that you need to carry an MBA for it. I mean, of course, MBAs also do an incredible job, not like demeaning them, but you definitely mean to say that there is also a psychologist who can do an equally better job for an MBA there. So marketing research is also one of the aspects that's definitely an open field for growth. And I really like the point that Jyotish Sir mentioned in terms of learning in a universal perspective and an international learning. And there are certain skills that is, maybe specific for a certain country in terms of, if you want to understand say GDPR guidelines, it's definitely specific to EU. And if you want to understand a certain different guidelines, how a country is specific. And here is where culture plays a role. Understanding different cultures by itself could go as a skill itself. You should understand how can you ask a certain type of question, and there are certain questions that you can't ask in certain countries. So those understanding cultures, understanding human, like before we jump into human machine learning, we should also understand human learning in different cultures. So that brings a field where there is no end where you can learn cultures. In India itself, for every 100 kilometers you have a new culture. So if you're thinking about like research and its field for future, there is a lot that will develop. And I think Noreen was saying something in the beginning of how she started her entrepreneurship with this particular, building a job opportunity itself. So sometimes you can also be pioneers in research. There might be some part of research that people never thought of. So working along with think tanks, or you building your own think tanks, it's all what you do. It's not really like there's never going to be an end for research. I can vouch for that. Yeah.
Like as you rightly said, there are a lot of opportunities out there, and I think like the biggest challenge is people themselves. Like you are the biggest challenge to yourself. There's so many fears which are just in your mind, and they just don't let you move forward. But the risk, the uncertainty, that is all what it is really. You have to take it. There is no other option. Otherwise, you can continue being in your comfort zone and be happy with what you're getting. But if you want to really grow, growth comes with risk. It will not come otherwise. Other than that, you just grow in terms of physical appearance. That's the only growth I can guarantee you if you don't take this. But in terms of opportunities and the scope, in terms of corporates, there's a lot out there. Every corporate, if you look at different statistics, everyone's reporting the amount of stress levels in employees have like skyrocketed over the past 4 years, especially post-pandemic. And that just shows it reflects on the productivity of the organizations, which is again, impacting the economy. So when you look at it, it's all like a cycle. So psychologists or researchers, basically, we can actually get into these kind of corporates and help them really find out what is the problem. Like if your employees are stressed, how can we as researchers, develop different tools, develop different interventions that can actually help in bringing a change in the environment and the culture of the organization. Sometimes I think a lot of us go, it's a very toxic work culture, my work-life balance is so bad and all that. That's basically what you need to go and do. You don't have to go for therapy and give them one-on-ones. You can actually just design something based on solid research that will help them shift the mindsets of these employees, which has a overall impact on the organization. So that's a very it's not a new field exactly. I think more of industrial psychologists focus on this, but it's very research heavy, and that's what I'm doing at my work right now. And a lot of job opportunities are opening in India itself. Like abroad is another game altogether. But in India itself, I think like even Tata and all, they have a lot of these KPMG, all of them, they have a lot of job roles that will help you, be a researcher so that you can help the psychology and the well-being of the employees, which is like a corporate research. So this is something that is picking up in the market, and yeah, I think there's going to be a lot more vacancies over time. It's just a matter of 1 to 2 years. It's not I'm talking about like a fire trajectory. I'm talking about like right now, literally our present. So to whoever's listening to this, I'm like going to tell you that's a really great place to jump into. And if money is something important for you, then that would be covered over here, because I'm not going to deny the fact that we need money to live. And some people do want to earn more than being only passionate. So I would really recommend this. So yeah, this is my take on it.
Yeah, I think as psychologists, we are too idealistic. Oh no, I'll just work on happiness.
Yeah.
Money, like money. So no, like seriously, this is also something I used to think this way. I was so naive back in college. Oh, no, whole different story. But I think it's very important that money should also be a focus. Don't chase just only after money, but you need to understand where your services and skills will be rewarded the most. Money is a very important aspect, and students of studying psychology need to start embracing that, because it's not just passion.
It's okay. It doesn't reflect bad on your profession if you're demanding for a pay for what you are delivering.
Yeah, we need money. And just something that Ray mentioned, the post-pandemic world, one thing that has really boomed is video games. So there's also a lot of research that's happening in this direction. So I'll be starting a project soon with a company that does game testing. But that's not, I play zero games. I don't play any games. So, but the reason they need my skill set per se is to do data collection and emotional analysis. So that's something that I see scope for, because I think with the pandemic, there's a massive boom in the video game industry. So there's a lot of different aspects coming into how psychology, and you can use emotional analysis and understanding players' emotions to better your games. So even something as where are they getting bored, or where are they getting excited? So how do we add more elements into our gameplay or something of that sort? So that's also probably one scope or one possible direction that I see our field could be headed towards.
Yeah, I think I would want to continue the thoughts on what Noreen and Jadisa was speaking. Did I talk over somebody?
No, that's fine.
I mean, do you want to finish or I'll continue?
No.
Yeah, all right. Thanks. So in terms of, we were talking about the money aspect, right? And I think it is necessary for anybody starting in the field to make sure that you're being paid for the work that you do. And that's again a stereotype that you have to break, that as rightly said, don't do anything for free. I think somebody told me if anything is free, you're the product. So if you have to break those things, you'll have to understand how much you pay. And of course there are a lot of work that people do on pro bono basis, that's definitely fine. But if you're doing any sort of internship, I would always watch for people to go for paid internship, even if it is just giving you like say 10K or 5K. It's okay, you start with something that you're getting paid. But I didn't really do an internship for me to say what is the paying standards, but if you're starting with job, you should be open to negotiate your salary. You should be open to say, yeah, I know the industry standards are this much, which a standard researcher in our country is being paid, and I would want to be paid the same. You have to make those statements that has to come out. Otherwise, doing research for volunteership is great until you are okay to not be bothered about your bills. But in case you have to start thinking about real aspects of life where you have to worry about paying bills, growing, etc., I think making those conversations are important. Yeah. Right, back to you. You can say.
Yeah, I have noticed this in all of us. When we graduated from Montfort, our prices were so low. The amount we would charge clients. That time I was taken to counseling and stuff. And then even when I got my first job, like my initial salary, I just agreed with whatever she was offering me, because I'm like, oh my god, thank you, It hasn't been doing me a favor, but it's only with time I realized my worth. And I'm like, my god, this is not just me, it was a lot of my classmates as well. And I think this is a narrative that is there in the field, especially, back in India, where we undervalue ourselves, and I think that's a very big problem for, like, we become the obstacles, right? We keep saying like, oh, psychologists are not paid and all that. It's because a lot of us believe we don't deserve to be paid. and I feel that is something we need to change as researchers also. Like I like for example, there was this job I got and she was okay with paying me I think 5,000, and I'm holding a master's and I'm telling her, yeah, I think that works. And I remember the point of what I had in my mind. I was like, at least something, is better than nothing. And I think that's very wrong. You need to set a standard for yourself. And money gives you a lot of autonomy. Like rightly, I think, Jyotika, I forgot your name. Jyotika. She said that, you need to prioritize it. It should be there in your, list, but it doesn't only have to be that. But if you're able to prioritize it, you will be more balanced. I think that's important in life.
It's very, and I think sometimes employers take advantage of this.
Yeah,
They themselves are probably psychologists or whatever. So it's very important to advocate. It's a problem. It's a problem in the field, in India. It's a big
And
problem.
just also adding on to it, like if you think about the hours that you add into a work that you do, and compared to a counterpart of yours sitting in a different country like US or UK or any other thing, they might be paid like extremely different money. And then the argument there is like your country's work-life balance is different, and your country's what is that called, expenditure per day, or it has a specific word. Day-to-day expenditures are different as compared to somebody sitting elsewhere. You can definitely argue saying that it's the same amount of work, same amount of thought process. So what I'm getting to say it as, already as a country, many of us are underpaid as particular to the global standards. So don't underpay yourself and give it a chance. So fight for that particular pay that you have to get, and that starts with a lot of negotiation skills. And
Yeah, I think I rightly agree with all of you. Sometimes there's an impression that you're only being empathetic, so that should come from a place of being nice and being there for somebody. Of course, that helps. But when I'm using empathy as a skill, everybody gets paid for their skill, and this is one of my skills that I'm using. So I definitely deserve and have a right to be paid for this thing. And like you all rightly pointed out, it's only relative. If it helps you meet your own needs, it should be okay. If not, then it is okay to also charge extra because you're also delivering, right? And delivering quality. So yes, of course.
Charge without feeling guilty. I think that's
Yes,
important.
definitely. That's very, very important. It was lovely interacting with you all, and I personally gained a lot, even though I was just here, asking questions. But I think it just helped me gain a lot of perspectives, and a lot of things that I did not even know about came to surface, and I have made notes, so I will definitely go back and check on what all is there and what all do I need to know more. And I think from what I've gathered, 2 or 3 things for a live audience, in case you missed it. I think one of the most important things they all pointed out was having a growth mindset. Of course, that really, really helps because that will also help to sustain yourself in the field. And moving on from there, there are opportunities out there. You just need to use your network, your resources, and your experience, your knowledge, well to establish yourself in the field. And third, like they said, it's a field that is upcoming. It has a lot of scope, and what you need to do is really be willing to learn more, be adaptive, and from there you can always take it off. Having said that, it was a wonderful opportunity. Thank you, Project Psychology and
Thank you, Shagan, and it's definitely a very interactive session to know more about what research executors is. I mean, I definitely learned a lot. And something that I really appreciate all 3 of you did is you like normalize the role as a research executive, and you like showed us how each part of research can be a job in itself. Like, thank you, Varsha, for bringing it up. And so this is like, thank you for reminding time and again, it's okay to fail, and even if you fail, it's okay to cry and just move forward. Like, that's part of yes. And thank you, Noreen, for your valuable insights on how to keep going, like setting priorities and keeping focused and not being discouraged on what comes our way. Like, definitely this is like an upcoming field. It's just sprouting, so there would be a lot of challenges. So keeping in mind that that's something I've definitely tell our viewers is being open. Again, emphasizing on being on the openness on what this field has to, provide, and just keep going with it. And I'm pretty sure that will take us a long way. So, if it's okay, we've got a few questions. So, would you mind giving us a few more minutes? Is that okay? If it is difficult, you can feel free to drop. That's totally fine. Excuse me as I look at my phone to ask this question. So something Jyotisha has mentioned about pop psychology research, how we see a lot of things on social media about psychology facts and stuff like this that will come up. So can you tell us on how we can differentiate for our viewers on how we can differentiate on what are actual psychological research and resources compared to what is pop psychology resources, so that we are more informed about it. Yeah.
So the first thing you definitely do is always check the citation. Go to university websites, go to Harvard Business Review, look at the citation, look where it's coming from. And once you know that it's from an academic space, it's coming from an academic university, for example, or from professors. Professors are working in industry, so even if they have a corporate or a company name on their paper, for example, or on their article, it will be linked back to a university department. So that is the best way to know. The first step to differentiating your good scientific sources from pop psychology sources, and the next thing would be year. So you don't want to rely on outdated research. So it's very important that you classify as a next step. You look at when the research was published, and you use year as your second marker. That's what I do personally. So first, always go to academic sources, and I know that a lot of times for students it's very difficult to get access to research papers, so that's paid. Okay, so then we have something called a Sci-Hub. You just go on to Sci-Hub and you download X research paper for free. Don't worry about it, it's fine. It's just a pioneer who is making research open and free to all. So I completely like things, and yeah, I 100% back them up.
Yes. Thank you for that. Yes, go on, Varsha. Yeah.
So I just wanted to add on to what Jyotisha was saying. Definitely go to those organizational websites to get that. So it starts, even if it is the extension, it's not .com, it could be .org or .edu. All these sites will definitely have reliable resources because they have people questioning them if they don't put reliable resources, right? And also one important thing I would say is even when you find citations are definitely important, and I would say you should also read the methodology of the research, and that is when you get confidence on the sample that they have targeted, or if they're what method they have used in gaining the data, how ethical it is, etc. So to just filter yourself out, I know we said you have to do a lot of reading, but filtering what you read also is important. So and filtering what you read, how specifically it is going to be important for you, starts with reliable resource, and it starts with you making sure that it is correct. Definitely with citations and methodologies, all the press releases could be accountable for that. Yeah.
There's something called the Open Science Framework, where universities and researchers are expected to put their research up on that framework so that everyone can access their data sets, their methodology, everything that they've done, their analysis code or whatever. So that's also a great place to start looking at preprints, for example, or published papers.
Or simply using Google Scholar. I think Google Scholar has quite a lot of authentic resources that people could read up. And reading the abstract and then deciding whether this paper, might be of something of your interest, and then only moving ahead, because some people just start from the intro and it can go on and they lose interest quite fast. So I would always recommend someone who's starting new to understand research and get familiar. It would read the abstract for starters, and then you continue reading, as you said, methodology and whatever suits you best. So yeah.
Definitely. Thank you about that. So again, since we're all psychologists discussing, about different this field in psychology, so one thing I wanna, help our viewers to also understand is how do you as researchers kind of have a work-life balance, and what are certain things that you do to have the strike between work and life?
At least for me, work-life balance is pretty good right now, because I feel like the kind of job I have fixed time, and for me research is very structured. Like I'm very systematic with when I'm going to do what and how much timeline I'm giving for each section or whatever it is, especially when I'm doing academic research. So like I try to cover it in that particular frame time. But yeah, there are times I do go overboard, but I always compensate with something which is, soothing in terms of going out with friends, support system, family time, all of that. Like the typical self-care things that we recommend as psychologists. So as a researcher, I think I still use that. So that's something that my degree really helped me with. And yeah, so I feel I'm very structured, so that really helps to build the balance out there.
That's beautiful. I think it kind of goes back to what you mentioned about having time management and setting priorities, like having work-life balance and having proper self-discipline definitely go a long way. Yes. So can we just take one last question? So it is okay. What would institutions have to inculcate in their curriculum to help students with research, both on master's level and PhD level? Any suggestions that you have?
We'll have to go to sessions. There's so much.
I'm sure.
My personal suggestion would be to make sure that you maybe start introducing students to something called R Studio. It's something that's used like SPSS, but it's easier, it's used more worldwide. So SPSS is still losing its stronghold in the international academic world, and R and Python are getting there. And of course, as psychology student, you might get nervous when you're coding, but it's nothing. It's just a fancy calculator. That's all it is. So I would really recommend. I hope that this can be a part of curriculum in India.
Okay, that's a beautiful suggestion, and I think
We can still hear you. Yeah, we can still hear you.
yeah. So I think that like using R is also like one way where you can upskill yourself into the field of research. That's a beautiful suggestion, Jyotisa. Thank you.
I would just want to add on to that with what institutions can do. Definitely, these kind of technical skills like R, Python coding, all of that comes in. But also, very important skill is to build a community of researchers, and only then they will be interested to do research. You can't just teach the theory bit of research and say this is a dissertation that you have to do. You will. I mean, of course, that's the right way, which ideally the right way to do, but I think you have to break that and teach students or make them meet individuals as as a community of researchers. So yeah.
I think she's no more there, but I think I'll continue. I think we have viewers, right?
Yeah.
Yes, we do.
Okay.
Yeah.
So, like for me, I feel like I have a whole list of things that I feel all the colleges and universities should use. Like the very fact that people have so much of a stigma and neglect research so much, or in India itself is like something that we need to talk about in the first semester. Like what happened at a lot of colleges is that it's introduced during the third semester. Though theory is taught, the theory is so different from the practicality of research, and I think we all agree on that. So, doing it side by side. So you teach one concept and teach them how to apply it then and there. For example, if you're teaching them data collection, then tell them to go collect data. They don't have to make it like a fancy ass project, but all I'm saying is so that they can get an understanding of how it works in the real world. So I feel that is something that will be more of experiential learning, and I think a lot of international universities do adopt to this. Like research is something that's introduced in the first year itself, not in the final semesters. So I think that would really help. And another thing is understanding statistics. The way statistics is taught is very scary. Honestly, I myself used to get very scared and overwhelmed after classes because it was just so much. It's so new. We're so used to seeing English text, all of a sudden numbers are interfering. The whole reason I took psychology was to avoid math. So like when I saw that back in front of my screen, I freaked out. And I think there were a lot more other people in the class who freaked out as well. So, just kind of breaking that stigma around statistics and teaching it from a little more chiller point of view, not the way it is usually taught in the curriculum that we have. So yeah, these are like a few things, and I really feel the destinations when they're doing like giving a little more support, because looking at backgrounds with which children or students enter colleges, they're not very well versed with research. So when you're in a master's program, I feel it's okay to give them a little more support as a supervisor, or as a teacher, or even your colleagues if they do have more understanding or knowledge, just so that you're able to understand what you're writing and what you're really doing, instead of expecting the student that they should have known. And that's another thing a student also needs to focus on is self-learning, and I can only come if they know how important research is for their career growth. So even as a psychologist, it's important to have like one or two papers in your name, only because it gives you more credibility, at least in the Western world, or this side of this thing town. It's a lot of it holds a lot of value. You have papers or publications under your name. It's like good for you itself. So it help you grow even in your career as a counseling psychologist. And there are a lot of licensing committees all over the world. For example, APA and all, like they do prefer giving you the license only if you have published one or two research papers, and not only practicing. So when you see how these two are like somehow getting connected with each other, I think research should be given more importance in universities. Even though you're coming there to be a therapist, opening your mind to research is something that a lot of students are yet to do, and I would really pray that they do it, because it can take you wonders. Even though you don't become a researcher, it can help you win in your career as a therapist.
Yeah,
So, yeah,
and
that's my
adding on to what Honorary was saying, it's also not just helping as therapists, it will also help you as a person, because you'll get clarity with things and you'll have certain sort of approach towards life, and how would you want to make certain decisions, or take certain choices. The researcher in you is never stopping you. It's always going ahead and finding certain things. And I think going back, I was just mentioning that you'll have to build a community of researchers in the university level, and getting them in touch with people who are already not necessarily established researchers, even starters of a researcher, once you start building that community. And I think I was, throughout the conversation, I was all mentioning what build curiosity of being a researcher. And I think students lack sometimes the curiousness to be a researcher, and I think that is not being built sometimes in a right way. So you should probably tell students what are the wonders a research can do, what are the insights that the research is bringing up. I know many dissertations that I've looked at, that last paragraph of implication that you write is very restricted to 4 or 5 lines that you randomly write, right? I think if you start giving focus to what a research could do, and even when you're doing your review of literature, when you understand the implication of that particular research, you can see the wonders that it could do, and what you can do back by giving back to the the field that you are from. So I think building a curiosity within the students to do research is the first starters, I would say. Yeah, thank you.
Just one final note on that. For students, if you are watching and you want to get a better understanding of research, there's this professor called Andy Fields. He writes these books for understanding statistics with R or SPSS. It's a fantastic book. He breaks it down to such basic things, and he uses such real life examples. It's freely available for download on the internet. So if you want to start from scratch, I would highly recommend his book and his resources.
I was for that. He's the one who helped me also understand, the basics of SPSS and the field. So, yeah.
Yeah, I think.
Yeah, go on, Varsha.
No, that's fine. I was just saying, to just add on to those other researchers, one of my favorite researchers is also Brené Brown, and sometimes I listen to her TED Talks as well, and very much relatable for as a researcher. So, yeah.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, thank you so much for just showering us with so much knowledge in this field so we're well equipped. So we are having quite a few questions, so keeping the time in mind, I just want to ask you, are you okay to take a couple of questions, or shall we ask you personally, and you can write to us back, what are you comfortable with?
I think for me, I would need to leave because it's Ramadan and we need to break our fast. So I will be taking a leave in a minute. So you can always send the questions. But before I leave, I would like to say to all the students out there who are really struggling with research, just know that help is available, and I can really help you, because that is the reason why I started my whole journey. It's because we really understand why you're panicking and struggling with it. So we're here to help. You can just reach out, and yeah, and Shiva, you can let me know whatever questions do come in from me. Yeah.
Definitely. Thank you so much.
Nice meeting you, Lorraine. And to everyone.
Thank you, Varshma. Thank you. Thank you.
Definitely an amazing time. Sorry for interrupting. It's just on a closing note. I just wanna, thank you all, our moderator Shagun, our panelists Varsha, Jyotisha, and Noreen, for your valuable time to come together, talk us, tell us about what research is, or the role of research executor, and how we can contribute to the society. I really hope this would help a lot of our viewers in the way they plan their careers. Definitely informative. I wish you all the best for your future endeavors. And for our viewers, please do tune in next week for another informative session on Meet the Clinical Psychologist. Thank you for your time, everyone.
Thank you.
Welcome.
Take care.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right. Take care. Bye.
Bye.
Thank you, everybody.
Thanks, everyone. Bye.
Bye.